Friday's calm, cool, and even somewhat defiant press conference from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky put the growing tensions between his administration and the White House on the world stage. But with President Biden announcing a plan to move U.S. troops to Eastern Europe, quote, in the near term, and a UN Security Council meeting tomorrow, is the Ukrainian president in denial, or are the U.S. and the Western alliance overreacting? Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Bera, who just returned from a trip to Brussels and Kyiv with a bipartisan delegation to discuss the unfolding situation. Congressman Bera, thank you very much for being here. You know, the Washington Post today has a front page story where it has this key nugget where it says officials in Washington, London, and within Ukraine's national security establishment are convinced that a Russian strike is imminent. And as I said, you just returned from your third the trip you took was the third trip of its kind since December. Did the demeanor and temperament of the Ukrainian officials you spoke with match the intensity we're hearing from President Biden?
Well, Jonathan, thanks for having me on. You know, I think they do take it very seriously. We met with President Zelensky as well as the foreign minister and defense minister. They understand the real threat, but they also don't want to panic their population and their public. And it is having an impact on their economy, and you know they're very cognizant of that. So I don't see daylight between the United States and Ukraine right now. You know, they're very serious about this and very focused and understand the threat at their border.
So they understand the threat. When you look at that clip of our Matt Bradley asking the president that question, President Zelensky, and he's oh so very calm. But do you, behind the scenes, does the sense of urgency come through from President Zelensky and the Ukrainian officials you're meeting with, that the more than 100,000 troops surrounding them from the north, east, and the south, that is danger that could await them?
Yeah, it certainly signals a lot of danger from what we're seeing in our intelligence. You know, when we talk to our NATO allies in Brussels and the European Union, I think we all take this very seriously. And no one totally understands what Mr. Putin's intentions are here, but we don't want to underestimate what he may do. The one thing the Ukrainians did remind us, and sometimes we forget, is they've been at war with Russia since 2014. You know, the Russians still occupy territory in Crimea and fighting a war off and on with the Russians. And you know, talking to everyday Ukrainian citizens, they seemed resolute that they have no intention of going back to what the days were like under the Soviet Union. They've tasted freedom. They want to continue moving towards a more democratic, open society, and they're ready to fight for that.
So that's what you were hearing from Ukrainian citizens. Ukrainian officials, what are they telling you? How are they preparing?
You know, that they are getting ready and reinforcing what potentially could be front lines, but they're also developing civilian defense forces where they would have a secondary defense force ready to go, and then they would have an equivalent of a reserve force that would be ready to fight to defend their country. What they're asking from the United States is that we continue to provide and supply them with aid. There has been an economic impact on their economy, and they'd like us to continue to help provide some loan guarantees so they can continue to access resources on the global markets.
Congressman, are the Ukrainians concerned at all or in any way about the resolve of the United States and the Western alliance to come to their aid if/when the Russians roll over the border in some manner?
You know, and the hope is the Russians and Mr. Putin understand that there would be devastating economic sanctions on Russia, that we would continue to reinforce the NATO front lines in Eastern Europe, and we would continue to provide aid and support to the Ukrainian government and the people. I think they understand that, and they're with us on that. Again, I think they would like us not to speak as directly, but I think the only thing Mr. Putin understands is very direct recognition that we understand the threat and we will meet that threat.
Mm-hmm. And what about our allies, the French and the German Germans who, in the Washington Post story, front page story this morning, are described as being somewhere in the middle between the, oh, let's keep everyone calm of the Ukrainians and the, oh, my God, an invasion is imminent, that everyone else, including the United States, seems to be messaging.
Yeah, so, I do think the French and the German are using slightly different language. I do think both of those countries understand the threat. The Germans, we'd like them to use slightly different language, but they have also very clearly said that if Russia were to invade Ukraine, they would be right there with us. They would, cut off the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. That would not complete. And it would have an economic impact on Russia. And, there's some negotiations going on what type of sanctions we would implement. We perhaps, the United States, are pushing for stronger sanctions. But at the end of the day, I think we will be there with our European allies and on the military defense side with our NATO allies.
Congressman Ami Bera, thank you very, very much for that update on Ukraine. Thank you for coming to the Sunday Show.